As Chloe walked to the principal's office to say the note was hers, she couldn't figure out why she'd be in trouble for her mom leaving her a note. It didn't make any sense. Was it wrong for parents to write notes to their kids? Chloe nervously stepped into the principal's office and admitted the note was hers. She explained that her mom had written it and left it for her, though she hadn't actually seen it until now. The principal thanked her for being honest, but then did something that completely surprised Chloe. Molly, Chloe's mom, was a horse trainer living in upstate New York. Chloe's dad had left a long time ago, leaving Molly to raise her daughter on her own. In the early years, Molly had a tough time making ends meet, but eventually she found steady work and created a warm, stable home for Chloe. They couldn't have seen it coming, but their lives were about to take a shocking turn. It all started with a simple misunderstanding, but the fallout would be very serious. The chain of events began one day when Molly was at work, dealing with a major problem. At the time, Molly was dealing with a sick horse named Charlie. Charlie had dealt with a number of injuries throughout his life, but never one like this. As Molly watched Charlie's health get worse and worse, she feared that he might not survive. But she was determined to do all she could to save Charlie. Perhaps the only person who cared more about Charlie than Molly was Chloe. She spent countless hours petting and feeding Charlie. She loved being with her mom at work. She loved being around horses. But none of them pulled at her heartstrings like Charlie. Chloe believed that it was just a matter of time before Charlie made a full recovery. One day, Chloe wrote a heartfelt paper about Charlie and read it aloud to her class. She shared his health struggles and how her mom was working tirelessly to help him recover. The story touched her classmates, who became deeply invested in Charlie's progress. Chloe earned an A on her paper, and soon, Charlie became a school-wide celebrity. Meanwhile, tragedy struck the small town where Chloe and Molly lived. A boy named Chuck, one of Chloe's classmates, had gone missing. The mysterious disappearance dominated local news for weeks as police launched a massive search. Chuck was last seen walking home from school, a short and usually safe route. A crossing guard waved to him, becoming the last person to see him. After that, Chuck vanished. During their investigation, police uncovered that Chuck had a secret hideout in the woods. He often spent time there alone or with his older cousin. However, an eyewitness claimed to have seen Chuck there with another older boy. This new lead puzzled everyone. Nobody admitted to being the boy in question, and Chuck's friends had never heard him mention anyone fitting the description. The town grew increasingly anxious as time passed without answers, fearing the worst. Amid the uncertainty, Molly's efforts to heal Charlie finally bore fruit. For the first time in months, Charlie started eating normally and was more active. Molly was overjoyed, and for a brief moment, the town celebrated some good news. If she was being honest, Molly thought there was a good chance Charlie might never fully recover. She never said so aloud, but it was a fear deep within her heart. So when Charlie finally showed real signs of improvement, she was genuinely optimistic that he might make a full recovery after all. Just when Charlie seemed to be doing better than ever, he was startled by a wild animal and injured himself again. This time, Molly didn't think Charlie could heal. It was a devastating setback after so much careful recovery. As Charlie's pain increased, he began to eat less and less. As the days passed, Molly's fears about Charlie grew worse. The horse could barely eat, and the vet confirmed the heartbreaking news. Charlie was dying. For Molly and Chloe, who loved him deeply, it was devastating. Knowing the end was near, Chloe spent one last moment with Charlie. The sight of him broke her heart. He looked frail and weak, and Chloe couldn't stop crying as she gently petted him, trying to comfort him one final time. The next morning, the vet confirmed what they feared. Charlie had passed away. Molly and Chloe held each other and cried, grieving for their beloved horse. Meanwhile, the community buzzed with shocking news. Chuck had suddenly turned up at the police station. He was hungry and frightened but unharmed. While everyone was relieved, his return raised more questions. Chuck wouldn't explain what had happened, leaving the town to speculate wildly. Many believed he had been kidnapped, but no one knew for sure. Amid the commotion, Chloe couldn't stop thinking about Charlie. It was her first experience losing an animal she loved, and she struggled to cope. Molly tried to help her, using the loss to teach Chloe about handling grief. Though Chloe started feeling a little better with time, she dreaded an upcoming school paper about Charlie. She worried it would bring back all her pain and turned to her mom for advice. Molly had a habit of leaving little notes for Chloe. Chloe would find the notes while she was at school. It was a nice way of giving Chloe a bit of advice or encouragement. Chloe loved receiving the notes, especially because they were a surprise and she never knew where they would be hidden. As Chloe worked on a difficult paper about Charlie, her mom, Molly, decided to leave her a little note to offer support. What Molly didn't realize was that this innocent note would spark a major misunderstanding and scandal. The note read, "It's probably best not to tell anyone about Charlie." Molly tucked it inside Chloe's sock, figuring she'd find it later when she changed for gym class. Unaware of the note, Chloe headed to the locker room to get ready for gym. While changing, the note slipped out of her sock and fell to the floor near her locker. Oblivious, Chloe went to class, leaving the note behind. Later, a teacher searching the locker room for a missing cell phone spotted the note. Curious, she opened it and read its mysterious message. The teacher immediately linked the note to the recent case of a missing boy named Chuck, whose full name was Charles. Alarmed, she brought it to the principal. The principal, equally suspicious, decided to contact the police. By the time gym class ended, officers had arrived at the school. Chloe, unaware of the chaos, returned to find her classmates gathered for a serious meeting. When the note was revealed, Chloe froze. It was her mom's note, but she had no idea why it mattered. For her, Charlie meant the horse, not the missing boy, Chuck. The principal said that whoever the note belonged to should stop by her office as soon as possible. Chloe was relieved that she didn't need to admit the note was hers in front of the whole class. It would have been incredibly embarrassing, but she still had no idea why the principal cared about the note. As Chloe made her way to the principal's office to admit the note was hers, she tried to think of why she would be in trouble for her mom leaving her a note. It just didn't make any sense. Was it against the rules for parents to write a note to their kids? Chloe never got in any serious trouble, and this whole situation made her very nervous. Chloe anxiously walked into the principal's office and said the note was hers. Her mom had written it and left it for Chloe somewhere, although Chloe hadn't actually seen it until now. The principal thanked Chloe for coming forward and admitting the truth. Then the principal did something that shocked Chloe. The principal then opened the door and 2 police officers stepped inside the office. Chloe was flabbergasted. What was going on? Why on earth would the police care about this note? Chloe felt like this must be some kind of misunderstanding, but she was scared beyond belief at how much trouble she might be in. The police explained they had been called because the note seemed suspicious and might be connected to Chuck's disappearance. Chloe quickly clarified that the note referred to a horse named Charlie that had recently died and mentioned her mom was a horse trainer. The principal felt relieved that it wasn't tied to Chuck, but the police wanted to confirm Chloe's story with her mom. Chloe, though confused by the situation, returned to class, hoping it would all be resolved soon. At the stables, Molly was training a horse when the police arrived. Seeing officers approach, her heart raced with worry. Fearing something had happened to Chloe, she rushed to meet them, bracing herself for bad news. The officers, however, didn't reveal much at first, instead asking if she had been training a horse named Charlie who had recently passed. Molly confirmed, explaining she'd cared for Charlie through severe injuries before his death. The officers seemed relieved as Molly's story matched Chloe's. They explained about the note and how it had been linked to the missing boy, Chuck. Molly admitted she had written the note to comfort Chloe and hidden it in her sock. The police, satisfied it was all a misunderstanding, apologized for alarming her and left for another urgent matter. Later, Molly picked Chloe up early from school, knowing the ordeal had likely unsettled her as much as it had her. Meanwhile, the police received a breakthrough. Chuck's cousin confessed to bullying Chuck into going to a secret hideout in the woods, inadvertently sparking his disappearance. The case was finally solved. Chuck's cousin had forced Chuck to go camping with him in the woods. Although a bully, Chuck's cousin was lonely most of the time and desperately wanted a friend. So he guilt-tripped Chuck into going camping and not telling anyone about it. Chuck knew his parents would be worried sick, but he felt like he had to do what his cousin told him. Once the pieces of the puzzle all fit, the police announced they had solved the mystery of Chuck's disappearance. Although Chuck's cousin was in deep trouble, most people were relieved that the situation had been caused by child shenanigans rather than something more sinister. Perhaps best of all, solving the mystery stopped all the paranoia and theories in the local community. As the mystery of Chuck's disappearance was resolved, Molly picked up Chloe from school. Chloe was shaken by everything that had happened, but Molly reassured her it was just a big misunderstanding and that she'd done nothing wrong. Feeling relieved, Chloe was happy to be with her mom again. To lift her spirits, Molly suggested they visit the stables. Chloe hadn't been there since Charlie's death but decided she was ready. Together, they spent time feeding and petting the horses, letting the stress of the day fade away. In the weeks that followed, life returned to normal. Chloe slowly came to terms with losing Charlie. Then, something wonderful happened. A horse at the stable gave birth to a foal. Molly brought Chloe to meet the newborn, and Chloe was instantly smitten. When Molly asked for name ideas, Chloe smiled and said, "Charlie II." Molly loved the tribute. Months later, on Christmas Day, Molly surprised Chloe by making Charlie II officially hers. Overwhelmed with joy, Chloe hugged her mom, her heart full.